Welcome back to the channel. This is the place where you can send me your stories and I'll give you honest, constructive feedback to help you grow as a writer. If you'd like me to feature your writing in a future video, check the description below for how to submit. Today's story is from Dianne. Dianne writes, Hi Kiana, I wrote this story for Halloween. It's inspired by Neil Gaiman's slow burn Coraline, the SCP-1762, and the What's in the Box meme from Seven. The things I would like help with is sentence structure and syntax and making it more airy and spooky. Thanks, Dianne. Thanks, Dianne, for your story request. Because Dianne's story is over 2,000 words long, congrats, by the way, I'm going to show the whole, I'm not going to show the whole story. Rather, I'll give brief excerpts of the story and talk about what's good and what could be improved on. With all that said, let's take a look. Excerpt 1. Secret admirer, he asked. Sorry, wrong term. Excerpt 1. Secret admirer, he asked. Shut up, said Sully. On the first day of school, Sully had wanted the top bunk, but as soon as he had said it, Brody immediately threw his duffel bag on the top, jumped into the bed, and stuck out his tongue. So, first, I love the dynamic between Sully and Brody. They have good chemistry and they have enough differences to not feel like they're the same character. They play each other off really well. The fact that Brody chose to have the top bunk just because Sully wanted it is top tier siblings. With that said, I'm not actually sure if they are acting like siblings and they're actually best friends. I mean, I do know because I read the rest of the story, but at this moment, I don't really know, how does Sully feel about Brody? Like, what does he think about Brody, about his domain? So, on that note, it'd be good to use stronger language or word choice to let the public know Sully's response and what he thinks. This whole use stronger language, use better word choice, that's going to come up a lot. I can probably say with confidence that it's really the only nitpick that I have because you've already edited this so much and you've already done such an excellent job at this. So my question is, does he like Brody or does he absolutely despise him? The more purposeful the words used, the more effective your communication. Excerpt 2. Sighing, he unpacked the rest of the boxes. A gold glittered box with a ribbon, an old cereal box, and a small jewelry box. They didn't contain many useful things for a boarding school student. One pair of socks, unwashed, a spare mug, and some milk cap bottles from his mum's sustainable stamps collection. He flattened the rest of the boxes, and on the way to the bin was when he first spotted it, a purple box sitting perfectly on his study table. Sally's mum setting these memorabilia boxes instead of normal things that he'd actually need is both random and intriguing. She is one of the most interesting characters in the story because of this quirk. I like, and this is probably more me speaking for myself than for a general audience, but I really do like the repetitiveness of getting boxes and then having to unpack them and flatten them out as a good lead up to the purple box. Something mundane like sorting through boxes when all of a sudden you find the purple box, the one box you're not allowed to open. That said, it'd be good to have even more emotion from Sully. Why is he sighing? Is he angry at his mom, but right now he's giving up trying to argue or reason with her? Is he tired from having to unpack all these boxes on top of studying every day? I can kind of guess that he's under a lot of pressure, both from having to clean his room from the ever-growing pile of boxes of random stuff and also having to study. But it needs to be actually communicated. It needs to be actually, written in the story. because that's the only way we're really gonna actually know what the stakes are. So you need to establish the stakes. You can't just, I don't want to just assume. I want to actually know. And yeah, so find the scenes. This is, what I recommend. Find the scenes throughout the story where Sully is sighing or his ears are ringing or something that shows some sort of emotion, some sort of reaction, and then see if you can further elaborate on what he's feeling. Try to name that emotion and then kind of elevate it with even more sensory details, but also introspection. And let us know what he's feeling and why he's feeling that way. You'll find that when you do this, the words you use to describe that emotion will become more versatile and you'll naturally raise or establish the stakes for Sully. Except three. He could have been eating mashed potatoes and roast chicken right now, but instead he walked the opposite way from the cafeteria, and yet still he held on to hope, a thin veil of hope that perhaps Brody had. Excuse me, just burped in the middle of that. Uh, he walked the opposite way from the cafeteria, and yet still he held on to hope, a thin veil of hope that perhaps Brody had managed to sneak out of the school and perhaps had gone on a bender in some nearby town that he'd found, and now perhaps he was inside the dorm, happy and alive. One could hope. Sully exhaled. He swiped his card. The door clicked. He flicked on the switch. First of all, I love this long cumulative sentence. It flows well both when I read silently and aloud. It has good rhythm. This gives good stark contrast to the several sentences that follow. These clipped short sentences that show only one idea, one independent clause each time. Sully exhaled. He swiped his card. The door clicked. I like this sequence because it makes us focus on each action. It gives us specific images while also creating this anticipation. We know something's wrong, and it's not going to end with Brody studying in his dorm room, and we're waiting to find out what. These short sentences remind me of my rule, Rule 14 in my writing rule book. Rule 14 states short sentences for fast and tense action. You've done this beautifully here. Sully really wants to have supper, and he hates that he's missing out on it. This gives him motivation to solve the conflict as soon as possible to go to supper. And you know what? It's effective. Now I want mashed potatoes and roast chicken. I think you could have established earlier in the story Sully's love for food. Perhaps the food is the only thing good in his life. Describe him munching on a packet of chips as he studies a maths textbook, or how he devours a whole plate of muffins during afternoon tea because he's so hungry. Think of how food can make the setting come to life and also give Sully a bit of personality and character. Hi, writers! How's October's going for you? Can you believe it's already Halloween month? Well, aside from the month of Halloween, it's also Prep Month for NaNoWriMo. That's right, that's National Novel Writing Month. Now, I know that the actual official NaNoWriMo is closed down, it's cancelled, it's not here anymore. But that doesn't mean that we cannot do NaNoWriMo. So, I'm still going to try and write a novel in a month. And that month is November, and I want you to join me. Fellow writer, will you join me? You do? Great. There's no sign up required. Just follow me on YouTube and we'll support each other as we write 50,000 words in 31 days. Good luck. Now back to Diane's spooky story. So one main thing in terms of improving on your story is to create or really just focus on creating tone, mood, and atmosphere through word choice. This is your opening sentence. After ignoring his mom's letters, he'd come back to his dorm room to see a pile of boxes covering his desk and spilling all over the floor and on his bed. You have hinted at conflict between Sully and his mum. You have created a problem with the pile of boxes currently littering his room. Well, you didn't say littering, but currently covering his desk and spilling all over the floor. However, I think with more specific word choices, you could elaborate on this conflict even more. So, using words, replacing those words, covering and spilling with something a little bit more specific in terms of the imagery that you want, or even just what you want to convey. Uh, Word choice also eliminates the important details that are crucial for the public to know. For example, it's more important the state of the boxes, that they're a bit frayed or ripped or decaying than what they look like. Here's an example that I wrote. After ignoring his mom's letters for several weeks, having returned from the library only to discover a landfill of old recycled boxes littering his desk, spreading all over the floor and onto his bed, Sully finally called his mom. In my example, I've used a metaphor comparing his room to a landfill. Words like littering and spreading aids in this landfill imagery that I wanted to create. Old recycled boxes also adds to this image. It's not like his mom used normal moving boxes or nice boxes. No, she used old recycled ones. I also included the information about how he's returned from the library rather than coming back to his dorm room because the mention of the library adds to his character, whereas we can assume from the context that he's now in his room, and therefore we don't need to actually say it. And finally, I use a periodic sentence. After ignoring his mom's letters for several weeks, a bit of information here, then Sally finally called his mom. This could lead nicely into the scene where Sully's at the phone calling his mom. Now, my example is by no means perfect. I recommend you comb through your story, take out a few scenes at a time, and rewrite them several times. Use specific words. Punishment becomes 4 hours in the choker, and headmaster becomes the voucher with the craned neck and a red vein pulsing on the side of his forehead. Play around with words and language and have fun. You've got a good story going here. Dianne, keep going with it. I hope I've answered your request, Dianne. And now for the last part of your request. How do I make my story more airy and spooky? The way to do this is, well, the way I see it is you've generally got two options. If you want to keep your ending, then I suggest you aim for a 5,000 word story and you use those extra 3,000 words to build atmosphere. Really develop your characters. Sully, Sully's mom, Brody, Mrs. T, the headmaster, and etc. Things that can create a spooky atmosphere could be character descriptions, dialogue, the way the school is run. You could even elevate the problem. Maybe Brody goes missing for several days before the resolution at the end. Maybe Brody returns at the end, but he's different. He's not the same. Brainstorm different ways to resolve your problem. Choose the scariest one. The second option is to extend on your story. What you've written is good as a standalone. However, it arguably could be a part one of three. That is, within the Act 3 structure, you've written Act 1. There's so much left unexplored. So, what do you want to do? Create a bigger build up to your chosen climax? Or continue your story to build up to an even bigger conflict and ending? The choice is up to you. Above all, read and read a lot. No matter which option you choose, or even if you decide to keep it at 2K, read a lot. Read Click Clack and the Red Bag by Neil Gaiman. Read The Landlady by Roald Dahl. R.I. Steins is a good horror author too. So is Stephen King. Read, read, read. Let these stories inspire your own creative work. Mystery versus exposition. Your story is walking on a tightrope of mystery versus exposition. There is a great tension between these two. How much can you explain before there's no more mystery and with it no more fear? We are scared largely of the unknown, so we don't want to fully understand something or how it works. But it may serve your story well to explain a little bit about the purple box and what it all means. You can do it through dialogue, through a flashback, through showing us rather than telling, via narration. Think of how Roald Dahl implies the fate of Billy Weaver and the landlady through the clue of the tea tasting like bitter almonds. This is what cyanide tastes like. He doesn't tell us what happened, but we can assume because of the array of clues that Billy ended up poisoned, like the previous two victims. And now for a writing advice straight from my writing rules journal, declassified just for you. Rule 30. Read your work aloud. It's even better if you can do this after a few days. Read the whole story aloud. This will help you to know what it sounds like and whether or not it flows. All writing has music. Is your music cohesive? Is it scratchy? Or does it know what it wants to be? Or is it a Frankenstein of different things, but that may not necessarily work together? So that's the rule for this video. Read your work aloud. Guided writing exercise, changing POVs. We're going to write a short scene where you would change POVs between characters. This means that you will have more than one main character. You will write the scene starting with one character, then continue that scene with another, and so on. Use at least 3 characters. That means 3 POVs, at least. Okay, are you ready? Have you chosen your 3 characters and your scenario? Then let's go. First, introduce the first POV, the setting, and the problem. Next, find a way to transition to the next POV. Marcus looked at Sophia with great desperation. Sophia normally wouldn't help him, but his expression and his tone of voice told her that she had to help. Now transition to the next POV, the last one. Great, and it's done. If you want to do more POVs, then you can keep going. Otherwise, reflect on how well you think you did and identify what was easy and what was challenging. And of course, you can pause the video here or you can rewind to listen to the instructions again if I went too fast. Here's an example. Dimitri wondered if the woman across from him would be interested in going out. The woman was in a red dress that matched her lipstick. Her curls fell gracefully on her shoulders, and she sat cross-legged on the bar stool, showing off her long legs and red high heels. As soon as Caitlin came back from the ladies and sat down, Dimitri had her in a cold, vice-like grip. Caitlin, can you do me a huge favor? Caitlin picked up at once on the urgency and desperation in his voice. They were extremely tight, going back since high school days, and would do absolutely anything for each other, no questions asked. Even after Dimitri told her about the woman in the red dress, she remained determined. Caitlin sauntered over to the lady, looking around so as to not stare at her, and sat down on the nearby bar stool. Tap, tap. She got the bartender's attention. 2 shots, please. Adrian, the bartender, who had been cleaning another glass, flung his towel over his shoulders and narrowed his eyes at the 2 women. I'll need to see an ID. Ring, 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 ring. Caller, what's your question? Yeah, hi, how do you begin a story? Mark Twain is credited for saying, the secret of getting ahead is getting started. What I like to do is to retell a story. That way you already have the structure and the ending in mind. I've done this for Jack and the Beanstalk, Red Riding Hood, Goldilocks, Snow White, and many others. Another thing I like to do is write imaginative recounts. The best source of inspiration is from our own lives. Our own journals, our own thoughts, feelings, and perspectives. A huge part of a novel is to express how you, the author, see and understand the world around you. How do you make sense of this often crazy and yet beautiful world? Am I describing the world or the human race? Maybe both. But seriously, we humans are so complex. It's crazy. Wow. It's the human condition. Huh? Huh? So write something that happened to you. And if you're writing a memory, a fuzzy memory, um, it's okay to guess what happened, not to make it up. Don't write about how a time-traveling dinosaur appeared on your eighth birthday party. Just guess based on what you've been told and on what likely happened. These are called small embellishments. Next, look over your story and now you can write an imaginative recount, which is take what you've written, this event that happened for real, and change a few details and add other details. You know that argument you had with your sister when you both had really stellar retorts and insults? Well, maybe you now thought of an even better one. Write that down. Include what you wished had happened in your story. Boom! Now you have a fledgling of a story. That's it for today. That's it for today's feedback session. If you found this helpful, hit the like button, subscribe for more writing tips, and share this with a friend who loves storytelling as well. And if you'd like me to review your story, check the description for how to do that. Until next time, keep writing, keep experimenting, and I'll see you in the next video.